in terms of Tozai, I can send you some updated Nielsen data if you're interested, but we were looking at Nielsen data, and so that's all the scanner shops, and it excludes a lot of business, but it is really interesting because it's not the most sophisticated customer that Nielsen captures. And sake in general is growing, but in the top 10 brands in the US, Tozai is number 7. And if you back out anything that's made in the US or just like not premium sake, Tozai is in the pretty far up in the top 5. But everything that's not Tozai in the top 10 is either sake made in the US from like a factory, like Gekkiken, California, Ozeki, California, or sake that's made in Japan but is bag in the box, magnums on the shelf for $10, or it's a very obvious third party, not like a private label third party sake that you can tell there's no soul behind it.
Right.
A focus group came up with a name that sounds Asian and is easy to pronounce. So we feel pretty proud to be in there in terms of, we are a household name in terms of being recognizable in a category that's really intimidating, but we're the only ones in that top 10 that have authenticity and integrity and quality behind it. Tozai, family-owned brewery, making premium sake from Kyoto up here, which is the birthplace of sake. So, it's very legit. No Japanese person can really say that we bastardize anything culturally with the product. Tozai means East meets West. I think it really captures this desire to globalize sake, make it accessible, make it something that people are going to have a bottle open in their fridge all the time. The watercolor koi fish are the longest living creatures in Japan. They can live to over 200 years. Really, really powerful symbolism behind that. And every generation of the family behind Tozai has been a competitive swimmer, so it kind of speaks to that too. And then on the left, the border is a different unique origami pattern, origami, which also started in Kyoto. And so we didn't just want to make a pretty label. So everything on there really has a lot of meaning behind it, but then it also is a product that you don't need to hold someone's hand when they're drinking it. It's very approachable. There's nothing that's super esoteric about any of the items. And they're really just priced in this way where if someone has been buying the lowest common denominator, that same customer could still approach Tozai and not get sticker shock.
It's so true. And I think with sake, especially to your point, we don't throw around the word premium, because when from the packaging and like the flavor profiles for sure, and whether it's authentically Japanese or coming from another area, there's also just so many different variations with how the actual sake is being produced. And I've been to the brewery. It's really, there's nothing that is, a lot of sake that is consumed hot is like, they're just, adding alcohol to it. And it's really like the type of thing where people go, oh my God, I got the worst hangover of my life from that. And even the typhoon that you can warm a little bit, like it's a totally different experience to drink, and that it's a total conversion thing for people.
And I have to say, Typhoon is our least expensive sake in our portfolio, and that's the one that I drink the most at home, just because it's so.
I like it too.
Yeah, it's such a workhorse. It has like really nicely balanced acidity. It's not super fruity where it'll give you palate fatigue. It has just the right amount of fruit and umami, really nice clean finish. And if you can leave a 1.8 liter open on the counter, and you don't need to keep it in the fridge because it's really sturdy. And so you can pour a little bit into, if you're steaming clams or mussels, or if you wanted to make a marinade, and you can pour a little bit into a cocktail if you want to make it less boozy. And I just find myself adding a little Typhoon to everything.
I love that. You just throw it around. And actually, if you wouldn't mind, would you just go through the other four?
Yeah. So Typhoon is the workhorse. It's a futsushu. Futsu means standard or regular in Japanese, and it's a very good table sake. And in Japan, and those of you who have been to a lot of wine regions, you probably do notice that when you go to a wine region, you're like, the table wine is actually really good here. Why is table wine terrible in America? And it really is because these large companies make really low quality wine where there are very few rules, and they sell it as table wine with tons of additives. And it's kind of the same with sake. In Japan, there's a lot of really good table sake consumed, but then these big factories will add up to 50% distilled alcohol, like you were saying earlier, lots of sugar, cornstarch, And that's what makes you feel terrible the next day. But Japanese people drink more table sake than anything else, and they drink good table sake. And so this is an example of one that's really great. And then the next level up would be the living jewel, junmai. So junmai, stylistically, junmais always have a very ricey character to them. And I know that that might sound silly because you don't smell a wine and say, oh, it smells like grapes. But most sake do have a cereal, like a kind of a rice grain characteristic. And junmai means pure rice sake. And so that expresses itself. In this one, it's a very light junmai. So you have kind of this like steamed rice aroma and this really soft mid palate that it has this like soft, generous texture, like freshly steamed rice. The fruit is definitely a little more ripe and vibrant than you get on the typhoon. I get a lot of really like tropical banana, grape skin, lemon, very light, clean finish. If you like just porch pounder kind of wines like Provence Rosé, Pinot Grigio, Vino Verde, this is a great one for you. And then we have the Well of Wisdom. Well of Wisdom is a ginjo. So ginjo is a little more premium. Ginjo refers to a low temperature, slow fermentation where you get these very pristine, pure aromas that are a lot more fruit and floral. So Well of Wisdom is a great summer sake. It smells and tastes like a really ripe, juicy watermelon, like that watermelon, cucumber, citrus, just super clean and refreshing. This is probably more of a like Sauvignon Blanc drinker or someone who likes a more aromatic, like Gewürztraminer. Like it definitely jumps out of the glass a little bit more with the fruitiness. And then we have the Snow Maiden. Snow Maiden is our #1 volume SKU at Vine Connections. There's not a single Malbec that we sell more of than Snow Maiden. And it's Nigori. Any retailer you talk to is going to at least know that Nigori is a hot category. I think that because it's cloudy, the texture is different, people are just excited about it, and it's more accessible because it's a little more straightforward. The Snow Maiden, some Nigoris can be really sweet and cloying. This is actually really bright and almost a little bit dry on the finish. On the nose, I always get a lot of honeydew melon and kind of like a raw pumpkin, like if you're on the inside of a jack-o'-lantern, like this really kind of juicy, sweet and savory pumpkin, radish, bright finish. It's killer with spicy food like a Thai coconut milk red curry. I can't think of a better beverage to pair with that. And then we have the Blossom of Peace. So Blossom of Peace is an all-natural plum sake. Japanese plums are super sour. They look like unripe green apricots, and they're just bracingly sour. So this is a sake that's made from start to finish like a sake, and then is soaked with these Japanese plums. The fermentation is stopped at 10%, so there is a little residual sugar, and then along with the plum sweetness, it's really balanced. It's really juicy and tart and tangy. I think that for, it's like a little classier than a Moscato. If someone likes to have, Riesling, or is that likes an off-dry Riesling, a Moscato, this is perfect for them. It's a little more complex, but it really satisfies that palate. I keep a bottle of that open in my fridge all the time too, because I really love mixing it in cocktails. We've been drinking a lot of highballs, and instead of just whiskey, soda, and some Blossom of Peace gives it a little more complexity and kind of makes the whiskey taste more like bourbon. I make kind of a Japanese twist on a Manhattan with that as well. And then we have Night Swim as well. So Night Swim is our newest Tozai. It's a can, 180 milliliters. If you guys are familiar with Bushido, so it's the same kind of deal where the whole lid comes off. You peel the whole lid off, and then there's a resealable plastic lid on top, which is great because you can keep you can drink some and put it back in your pocket. It's also nice that the whole top comes off, because if it is really hot outside like it is today, you can drop an ice cube in there right in the top. You can even make a cocktail in the can. Like sometimes I'll drink a third of the can and then I'll add vermouth, or I'll add a liqueur and ice and shake it up, put the lid on and shake it up in the can. It's just a really easy way to have a cocktail that involves no washing dishes. Yeah, that's the Tozai lineup.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. And actually, since you mentioned Bushido, and I know everybody knows, but we will use the recording. So if you would just mention kind of go through that one as well, that'd be amazing.
So Bushido is our other can. Bushido has a little more of a persona behind this. We have the fox and the fish with Bushido and Night Swim, right? And so foxes are the gods of rice. So like the koi fish, the fox is a really, really important creature in Japan. And Bushido means the way of the warrior, or the samurai code. So we wanted to make something that was a lot more premium than other single serve sakes, but also very powerful. And we wanted this to be kind of like a pre-gaming sake where Night Swim is very mellow. Night Swim is 14% alcohol, very round, very soft. We wanted Bushido to be like high octane and kind of a party sake. So it's a Genshu. Genshu means undiluted. So with this kind of samurai warrior energy, this is 18% alcohol straight out of the tank, but it is Ginjo. So when we were talking about Well of Wisdom, we talked about how Ginjo is a little more premium, colder, slower fermentation. So Bushido is going to be more fruity than Night Swim. It does have some of that watermelon that you get on Well of Wisdom, a little bit of pistachio, raspberry, a little more spicy on the finish. So Bushido is like one of those things that you drink when you need some liquid courage, where Night Swim is what you drink when you are kind of unwinding after a long day. In the bottom right, you can see it's a 5-pack sleeve. So if you had seen the old Night Swim, it is the top is more like a soda can and they come in 4-packs, but now we have a 5-pack sleeve and they're canned exactly like Bushido.
They look awesome. I love the new Bushido sleeves too. Those came out so awesome. Like people just love the way that it looks on the shelf, and then I usually see like a little row of them outside of the 5-pack.
Yeah, I really love the color scheme that we came up with for Bushido. You know, I think a lot of advertising looks too obvious to me, where it's just, you know, and so having that kind of color palette associated with Bushido lets us do more subtle advertising, which I think is just a lot more fun.